some transfer rumours just feel that they're absolute nonsense, and then some, I don't know, they just sort of grab your attention and you think, yeah, there's something in there. And I've got to say that that's the case with Arsenal's interest in Mohammed Kudus. It just feels like it. It really does. It feels like there's almost a little bit of a PR war going on before basically the tanks are pulling up, and before any shots are fired, there's a lot of words getting spoken. So let me just take you through the last 48 hours, which I think has been quite busy in sort of the exchanges of transfer rumours between the two clubs. Now, it's got to be pointed out that West Ham, as of quite early this morning, have said there is. Well, actually, it changed. The messaging changed, all right? So yesterday, we were told there's been no dialogue, there's been no contact between the two clubs. Yesterday, it changed, and I always think language is important. Today, there's been no offer. Well, that's different, isn't it? That is different. No official transfer bid has come in from Arsenal to West Ham for Mohammed Kudus. It's very, very different to there has been no dialogue, or we've not had any discussions, which is what was said last night. And, you know, a lot of this stuff can change very, very quickly. I've been trying to rack my brains back to what happened with Declan Rice, how much of that was public. I know Manchester City came in and it was quite weird what happened there. But as things stand at the moment, it sort of started to get leaked out that Martinelli, it's been a really, really good signing for Arsenal. Funny enough, West Ham were offered this kid for 1.5 million. I think back in 2018 we were offered him, something like 2018, 2019, and we turned that down. There's every club has got a long list of players they missed out on, but yeah, that seems like quite a tricky one. Not as bad as Julian Alvarez. I think Julian Alvarez is maybe the one in more recent times, or maybe Scott McTominay. Who knows? Anyway, whatever. Conversation for another day. But maybe Martinez is not quite up to the standard that Arsenal need to get to that next level. We might see differently tonight, of course, simply playing in the Champions League. Humdinger last night, that game was, right? PSG and Inter Milan. Anyway, I keep digressing. Excuse me, keep going off on a tangent. Get back on track, man. Right. They believe that Mohammed Kudus will be an upgrade. So that started to get leaked out. They're interested in Mohammed Kudus, but not at the price. Now, around yesterday, a price seemed to start getting leaked at about 70 million euros, which works out at 59 million pounds sterling. Somebody at the club, not a top source, but somebody at the club said that West Ham would consider that to be a derisory bid. Now, this is the sort of open and public haggling that I think goes on. I just think this goes on anyway. I think there's maybe sometimes the club are releasing information out there, and I think sometimes agents are doing so. And it wasn't too long after. That was when West Ham said, well, hold on a second, we've not even had any contact with Arsenal at all. It then transpired quite late last night that actually the £59 million sterling wasn't true at all. Arsenal have pretty much said, we're not going to bid any higher than 50 million for Mohammed Kudus. We then get to this morning where the club are saying there's been no official bid. You've got to do a lot of reading between the lines in this, because you clearly don't know, particularly when there's a sort of PR war and basically a public eBay auction going on, which I think is what we're looking at. I think reading between the lines, I can see Mohammed Kudus going to Arsenal. And I can see him going to Arsenal for more than £50 million, which I won't say they won't pay more than. I don't know if I've got this right. I think there was a point where Arsenal was saying they wouldn't pay more than, I can't remember whether the figure was 60 or 80 million, but there was a figure that they wouldn't pay more than that for Declan Rice. Truth of the matter is, I don't know how this happened. Manchester City came in with a bid of 85 million for Declan Rice, and then Arsenal's next bid was £100 million plus 5 million add-ons. Hold on, I don't know why they just didn't jump to 87 million or something like that. But anyway, West Ham did well. We've done very, very well out of that transfer, although, you know, it starts to look a bit cheap when Declan Rice starts banging in free kicks and stuff like that. So I think this is what's going to happen now. But West Ham have got a decision to make, really, on this, because Kudus is very much seen as the main means in which we can fund our upcoming transfer spend. And I just don't think £50 million is probably going to cut it for West Ham, particularly bearing in mind We bought him for 38 million plus add-ons. I don't know what the add-ons were, but I doubt they were very much. Maybe they took it to 40 million. We're not, look, a £10 million profit on this player is not going to be great. Now, it should be pointed out that on the balance sheet, they depreciate by 20, if he's got a 5-year contract, he depreciates on the balance sheet by 20% of his value each season. I think I've got that right. So, yeah, on the balance sheet, it probably looks okay, but this is not about the balance sheet. I think in many respects, this is about cash flow, and we're going to need money to be able to bid for players. I think that's really the point here. He's not been good, which is this season, which is not really helping West Ham's hand, but he does have a buyout clause, which is very complicated. £80 million to European teams, £85 million to Premier League teams, of which obviously Arsenal were one, and £120 million to a Saudi club. This is where it starts to get interesting. West Ham aren't going to get 85. I don't know why I'm whispering. Like it's a secret. West Ham are not going to get £85 million for Mohammed Kudus. He's just not been that good. But Saudi interest is where it becomes, well, interesting. Before I go any further, can I please just point you in the direction of Hammers Chat's Patreon page? Channel. It's our third Hammers Chat channel, basically. And it's the best way that you guys can help support Hammers Chat. The link is in the description below. It's patreon.com/Hammers Chat. And we've got a 7-day free trial. But if you just wanted to sign up anyway and help us out, it's basically £3 a month plus the VAT. It's £3.60 a month. You get loads of additional content. You get entered into competitions, of which we run many, many competitions. We've got ticket giveaways, loads and loads of stuff going on over there. There's non-West Ham podcasts. There's West Ham podcasts, not just from myself and Gio. We do player ratings, which is probably our most popular one. We do our Naked podcast. We have Babbling Irons on there. We got the Overland and See You Next Tuesday podcast. We've got so many things, opposition previews, interviews, so much going on over there. We'd love you to give it a whirl. It's the best way that you can support Hammers Chat, which allows us to upload daily on each channel. Fun enough, I might even be back later on. In fact, I think I probably will be, just waiting for some information with another video on this channel later on today. The only reason we can do that is by doing our Patreon, and then I'm probably tomorrow on Patreon going to be looking at Y Scout, which is basically the international scouting software to look at a player. We call it the amateur scout. I basically bumble my way through and look at a player that we've been linked with by using the latest technology, which is if you want to see it a full. As somebody once said, like seeing your gran in charge of a Sky remote, then you can tune into that as well. Link is in the description below. But if you just pop Hammers Chat Patreon into Google, you'll find it as well. We really appreciate your support. Okay, so let's get back to this buyout clause, particularly the Saudi one. There is rumoured to be interest from Saudi club in Mohammed Kudus, but they are also interested in some other players, one of which is Matoma. Now, Matoma's obviously at Brighton, and it was suggested that Brighton turned down £90 million from Matoma in January. So I think, and that was from Al Ittihad, I think that is correct. There is certainly the Moneybags Club, the Moneybags Club that have got Cristiano Ronaldo and Jean Duran and many, many others. So when you hear that they are willing to bid £100 million for Mohammed Kudus, it's believable because they've got history of spending loads of money, and very recently they were willing to spend £90 million on Matoma. West Ham will be absolutely desperate for this sort of bid to come in. Forget the £120 million buyout clause for Saudi. We'd rip anyone's arm off, I think, for £100 million for Mohammed Kudus at the moment, who I do believe, I haven't got anything bad to say about him as a player. I think he's a really good player. I think there's loads of players at West Ham who have been underperforming this season. He is one of them, and you know what? We can blame successive managers, we can blame the hierarchy, we can blame the players themselves. But I still do believe, even once that conversation's ended, that Kudus will probably go somewhere else and has the potential to look like a world beater again. So I think we've got to get this right, otherwise we could look... Well, we could look silly. Not that should be the most important driving factor, how we're perceived and how we look. But if we were to sell Mohammed Kudus for £50 million and then he goes to Arsenal and he starts looking like the player that we had last season, then you start to think, well, hold on a second, we've not done particularly well here. He's going. He is going. I will not be convinced otherwise. It's just for what fee? But it was something I used to say about Declan Rice. West Ham had to have been prepared to play hardball with Declan Rice, which was, there came a point with Declan Rice, I do think it was 60 million was suggested at one point, which, as I say, I just think was haggling. And bearing in mind, he still had 2 years remaining on his deal. I used to say on this very channel that, actually, do you know what? If it's 60 million, we're better off thinking, do you know what? We'll keep him for another season. Particularly bearing in mind we were still in Europe then, we'll just keep Declan for another season and get 35, 40 million for him next season. And just keep him for another year. And if we don't get our money, then we'll just keep him. And you had to be prepared to play hardball and do that. The one reason that West Ham couldn't do that, I guess we had a gentleman's agreement with Declan that we would sell him. And I guess it's good to do that. You've got a gentleman's agreement. You've got to stick to it. That's only right and proper. That is. And I'm glad, I'm glad in that respect that we did. But we had to be prepared. We had to be prepared to be a little bit skullduggerous. And I think there comes a point in this where you think, well, hold on a second. And here's the thing. Here's the thing. If we were to turn around and say, no, £50 million is too much, we're keeping him. Do we think we'd get £50 million worth of value out of Kudus next season? Well, at the moment, it would look like we can't. But then, we've got a bit of a chicken and egg situation here. With a proper midfield, an energetic midfield, would we be able to have more control of a football match, and then just create, be it turnovers or be it, just transition or possession or whatever it may be, whichever way we're going to play, would we be able to provide the front line, of which I would very much include Mohammed Kudus in, would we be able to then provide them with more opportunities and therefore see a better, more improved Mohammed Kudus? I think the suggestion is yes. The answer to that is yes. But it does beg the question, if we don't sell Mohammed Kudus, will we be able to reinforce the midfield to that extent? I don't know. I don't know. Maybe players like Edson Alvarez going. There's a lot of players definitely going. There's a lot. Somebody asked me a rhetorical question on the comments yesterday, and they said, if West Ham didn't have Jarrod Bowen next season, if West Ham sold Jarrod Bowen next season and had, I think I've got this right, apologies if I haven't, but kept all our remaining players, how do you think we would do next season? It was so rhetorical and it was so sort of unrealistic. It was because, look, West Ham will have Jarrod Bowen next season. If we did, we'd have a lot of money for him, so that would be reinvested into somebody else. And just, there's no way that we're keeping the same squad next season. There's just no way. Rodriguez is not going to be here. Edson Alvarez is not going to be here. Kudus is not going to be here. Danny Ings is not going to be here. I can go on and on and on and on and on. There's no way that would happen. So because there's so many who are on their way out. So just maybe those guys going out will generate some funds and allow us a little rebuild. Anyway. Who knows? Right, I'm off ski. I'm going to get this uploaded. Thank you very much for your time. Let me. Do you know what? I'd be interested to know on this one actually. For those of you that have lasted until the end of the video, thank you very much. What do you think is a reasonable fee? I think most would agree we won't get 85 million. And I was going to say most would agree that 50 million is too little, but I don't want to be presumptuous on what you think. Give me your fee. Let me know. Let me know in the description below. I'll be very, very interested to what you think we can expect from Arsenal. Forget Saudi, but from Arsenal, let's say, what we can expect for Kudus. Because I do think Liverpool might come in, which is what we need. But as I understand it, Liverpool are also interested in Wissa, but Wissa wants first-team football. So he's not so keen, which is why West Ham came into play, because you would expect that we could offer him that. But let me know what you think. What would Arsenal be a reasonable amount of money that you would accept from Arsenal for Mohammed Kudus?